Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around we had Horror of Fang Rock. What was that one about?
Well, kind of a nice, spooky little mystery. The TARDIS lands somewhere on the south coast of England at a place called Fang Rock, which has this lighthouse. And one of the lighthouse keepers sees a streak in the sky. It turns out to be an alien. I can't remember if it was an alien ship or just the alien itself, but it begins coming in and taking over the people in the lighthouse, and then a very rich person's yacht, schooner, whatever you want to call it, crashes on the island. And it goes back and forth, ultimately ended up killing pretty much everyone except the Doctor and Leela. But they figure out that fire and light are its biggest problem, so they manage to dispatch it by the end. But atmospherically speaking, and again with all of the special effects and everything, including the little blobby monster, it was overall really kind of good. One of the most consistently good throughout the entire 4 parts that we've seen.
Yeah, definitely. Also, I should say it's horror of Fang Rock. Yeah, because as soon as I said that, I was like, I don't think I have an accent, but definitely if you try to speed up saying horror, yeah, it gets a little iffy when you try to say
all the R's in there.
Yeah, so
yes, the other way would be a completely different story.
Yes, it would. So, but yeah, it was an interesting one. Definitely worked out perfectly that it falls on Halloween. At least the reaction does. We say that we're still pre-Halloween recording this. Today's the 23rd, actually. The 23rd, which most people know, is when the last episode of the 13th Doctor is currently airing. And I've heard some dumb theories as to how it's going to end on Twitter. And God, I hope that's not true. But by the time this goes up, we'll have already seen. So hopefully that won't happen. Some people know what I'm talking about, but I'll see later, eventually. But yeah. Anywho, today we are on The Invisible Enemy, parts 1 through 4. And I don't really know what to expect from this, aside from an enemy that is invisible. I guess of the sort of generic titles, that one does at least... It has a point. Yeah. It's better than some of the ones where it's like, you just can't gauge anything from what they're saying. However, I was told that at some point in season 15, there's going to be a bit of a tone shift because Robert Holmes is going to leave, basically, in the middle. So we're going to be switching producer / showrunner. I know that's a more modern term, but it's kind of the same thing. So yeah, I think we're going to be... I don't know if we're going to get that today in this story, but it's definitely on its way in the next couple. So,
but we've enjoyed Robert Holmes.
Yeah.
Especially, like say, the Sherlock Holmes thing in the talons of Wing Chiang.
Yeah.
That was really well written.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we go from here. I mean, because this, I guess this is around the time... This is probably around the time when people said, like, if you split Tom Baker's era in half, then we could do the whole thing where, we go over each one. And while that's probably a good idea, we're not going to do that. Because I thought it would actually just be... I figured it would just be funnier if once we're done with however many ridiculous number of seasons he has, if we do go through every story, but it'll probably be its own separate video at that point.
I was going to say, even a 30-second recap of all of those. Doesn't he do like 7 seasons?
Yeah, it's quite a lot. So so that'll probably be its own separate video at the end of the 4th Doctor's era. But I just think that'd be funny, especially with, once we go through the last couple, and because I don't know how those are going to be. Are they going to be good? Are they going to be bad? I don't know. But then going back and trying to put ourselves back in the mindset of like Robot and Unit and stuff like that, and how do we remember those after so many seasons? So we'll probably do that just because it's funnier, and that's pretty much what we do. If it's funnier, we'll do that. So I don't know how much comedy we're going to get out of today, but why don't we go ahead and find out? You got anything else?
No, just going to say for those of you who are following the story, we have finished blocking A Territorial Christmas Carol. We're going to start working rehearsals. We get our children's cast in on, today is Sunday that we're recording this. Wednesday night we'll have our first rehearsal with the children, and we will open on the night after Thanksgiving here in the United States.
Yes. So while most people are... Well, actually, I was going to say while most people are killing themselves for a flat screen at Walmart, you will be performing. But
yes,
the night of Black Friday, it's already done, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you'll have a bunch of people walking in with, black eyes and missing teeth from going out Thanksgiving night. Because let's be honest, Black Friday starts on Thanksgiving.
Well, it may not this year. I read an article that a lot of stores, including some of the big ones, I can't remember if it was Walmart or not, but they're just not going to open on Thanksgiving. They just said it's not worth it anymore. And I can tell from personal experience, I went out only once on the Black Friday. This was before you were born, in fact. But your older brother wanted a Game Boy that had a camera attachment to it.
Yeah, the Game Boy camera that you can pop in.
And I got out to the mall here in North Oklahoma City about 4:30 in the morning, and there were already like 50 people in line. The store didn't open until like 6, and it was, of course, cold and almost snowing that morning. And when they finally opened the doors and we started in, I'm not kidding, little old ladies behind me were elbowing me to get me out of the way, and it was like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
Fortunately, when I got in the store, I saw the cameras were right by the checkout. So rather than running into the store, I just got in line. I was like the third person in line at the checkout and said, I just want one of those cameras. That's the only thing I want. They sold it to me, and I got out of there. I was home by 6 o'clock, 6:15, something. It was very, very short. I was only in the store for about 5 minutes, but got elbowed by little old ladies.
Yeah, so luckily, you're right. I don't think that's too much. They do that too much anymore, and especially... I think that changed in 2020 when with everything with COVID, stores were like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that for anybody. So hopefully that persists, and you won't have too many black eyes and missing teeth and broken arms going to your play. So, but yeah,
bah humbug.
Add that to the lore, basically. So, anywho,
the invisible enemy.
The invisible enemy. Why don't we go ahead and jump right into that?
Relatively realistic 1970s spacesuits.
Well,
Gain a manual.
I feel like this is the set from Robots of Death. Robots of Death, just dressed up now.
You're off course.
Yeah, sorry, Skipper.
Put it back on automatic, please.
I can't.
Oh no, they're going to have to get up and do their
Titan
jobs.
shuttle, Captain.
Oh jeez. Oh hey. TARDIS set is back to normal. I forgot the wooden set only lasted for one season. That's good model work.
Yeah.
And the landing port, I don't know why it just reminds me of the Santa Claus when they bring the sleigh in.
Come on in. Join the party. Our last supper on Titan. Well, come on, get your gear off and relax. You're going to be here for... Hey, what kind of a joke?
Well, it was their last supper. Okay.
There is one other, the station supervisor.
No,
We
he's
must
turning into
find
a
him,
werewolf.
Destroy him.
Werewolf.
We can make this the ideal place in
Werewolf.
which to breed and multiply.
Exit.
As soon as I've reset these coordinates, we'll go somewhere really...
All under control.
There we
Our
are.
apologies.
That's it.
Our apologies.
That's what?
That's
Titan
something
base
evil.
out.
It was not a human speaking.
It wasn't?
Yeah, I know she's a hunter, but how did she figure this out?
We must destroy her and dispose of her body with the rest.
Good luck with that.
Shoots him. Shoots him hard.
Just do it.
Drop your weapons. I'm arresting you, all of you.
Well, you got one. See, it's a problem watching this as Americans, because we shoot first and ask questions sometime.
Turn off the oxygen supply.
Why do they have to have such a crazy font for things?
Also, it's like the spelling for exit was E-G-S-I-T.
Yeah.
And the emergency was also like spelled with a J.
I'm not ashamed of what I am, and I tell you, Doctor, I can smell danger.
What did you say?
I said I can smell danger.
I wonder what evil smells like.
Probably sweaty.
And burnt toast. Oh, he's still alive.
He was frozen.
Without oxygen for like a minute.
A good place.
Yes, a plant will hide you.
Come on, Leela, I'm waiting.
Hide behind the fern.
Oh, finally! It took so long, but that knife finally worked.
I know this place.
Oh no, he's getting a hairy hand. Well, you know, we have some previous, I suppose, trauma with werewolves being turning into werewolves in sci-fi shows. But other than that, it's a good story.
Yeah, it's very fast-paced. Not really dropping a whole lot of clues. We know that there's this entity called the Nucleus who has lived in this cloud apparently and has found a suitable spot to make more of themselves, itself, whatever, they, themselves, whatever their pronouns are.
Well, it kind of reminds me of the Waters of Mars a little bit.
You know,
just with the possession and the stuff on the face and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of that is interesting, and the location is pretty good too. So
now in Fang Rock, were they still using the old computer or the what do you call it? Central unit.
Yeah.
Control room, whatever.
I don't think they showed it.
Yeah.
I don't think they were inside the TARDIS. And I think the explanation is like the wooden TARDIS set got wet and like had terrible mold and everything. So they were just like, okay, why don't we'll make a new one, but let's just go back to the original style. So just updated it a bit more. So yeah, I'd completely forgotten about that, and I had forgotten about the wooden set too. So it's nice to see a more classic version back.
Yeah.
And I think this one just sticks around. Like I seem to remember the Fifth Doctor also having that particular TARDIS set. So.
He's a hairy-handed gent who ran amok in Kent. Lately he's been overheard in Mayfair. Better stay away from him. He'll rip your lungs out, Jim. I'd like to meet his tailor. Werewolves of London.
I can feel it gathering strength to attack again.
The evil one?
Some kind of organism. It attacks the mind, the intelligence. It's trying to take me over, Leela.
Oh, and Leela doesn't have that.
Why not me?
More brawn than brain. If this was any other companion, they'd be entirely offended once they figure it out.
It may also be something like the Andromeda strain, where there's a huge number of people that it affects, but a very narrow number that it doesn't, and they had to figure out what it was about those people.
Yeah.
shuttle airlock. I think in the future they have decided to do away with all extraneous letters. You don't need 2 T's.
Oh, yeah.
But then it should be SHUTEL, shuttle.
Can I be with the doctor?
Not until Professor Marius has had a chance to examine him.
Marius?
He's our specialist in extraterrestrial pathological endomorphisms.
Oh.
Wait over there, please.
Petty functionaries still around 5,000 years later.
Hey, it's K9.
We were on our way to Titan. I assumed it was just a static builder. And then when I checked the computer, it jumped into my mind. And that explains why Leela was unaffected. Have you looked, Leela?
No.
She's all instinct and intuition.
She doesn't
Virus
think.
Rejected her.
Well, that's horrifying.
Yeah. It's just modern art.
At present, cloning procedure is possible but unreliable.
10 minutes, 55 seconds.
Professor Marius, could you clone me?
Certainly. The Kilbracken technique is very simple, but it's a circus trick. It's of no medical value.
Could you
Just
clone
casually clone him.
K9,
Master,
Kaleli.
affirmative.
Initiate instant kill.
What does that mean?
He knows.
Ooh, right in the crotch.
Oh no.
Fried his fritters.
Ugh.
Is that a busy phone?
Oh, you're Professor.
Yes, now what?
If you need me, I shall be with K9.
Yes.
It's nice that Leela now has a hunting buddy. Oh good, it made clothes too.
The Kilbracken cloning technique replicates from the single cell as a short-lived carbon copy. Efficacy of individuation not completely guaranteed.
Can you simply?
Negative.
Oh, what the heck is happening now?
You must release the doctor.
I don't think the doctor would have crossed his legs.
We
Yeah.
are in control of the entire
Been
center.
on slabs like that before.
If you do not do
Well, keep
Why
your
have I
verbal
been
weight.
left in?
We'll be reduced to micro dimensions. You then scoop us both up and inject us into my master print there. Any questions?
Yes, why are you taking Leela?
Because she's immune and because she's a huntress.
Of course. Well, get on with it. There's not much time. Is there
Oh.
anything that we can do meanwhile?
So it's gonna be like the Magic School Bus. We're going inside.
This fantastic voyage.
We'll be coming out
A
of the tear.
60s film about reducing a team of scientists, putting them in a submarine, putting them inside the human body to destroy a brain lesion.
Funny enough, this was also a 12th Doctor episode, where he shrunk and went inside a Dalek.
Pleasant journey, Doctor.
Well, it's goofy, but it's fun.
And that's, you want to talk about a film you need to see. For the 1960s, the special effects were incredible in that film.
Oh, yeah. And I can't remember which episode of the Magic School Bus it was where they went inside, or why they were doing that at all. So, the only episode I really remember, aside from that, is the one where they go out into space, and there's some stupid little kid there that he gets mad on Pluto, and for some reason that means he has to take his helmet off. I don't remember why, but he freezes, like, instantly. His entire face freezes when he takes his helmet off on Pluto, and then it just, like, cuts to when they're back on Earth and he just has, like, a cold and he's eating some soup. So, anyway,
Okay.
a bit of a morbid episode, honestly. He practically dies. But anyway, yes, also that movie, that classic movie you recommend.
Yes.
So, yeah, so not where I thought we would go. I didn't think that we would clone the Doctor and Leela and then shrink them and inject them into the Doctor to take out the nucleus, but that's where we are.
The only problem that I'm seeing here is they said that the clones only have a life of about 10 or 11 minutes.
Yeah.
So after he was cloned, he went back to the TARDIS, retrieved what he needed, and then he shrunk. So we're assuming that's got to be 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So they've got, at a maximum 7 or 8 minutes to go through the body to find the nucleus and destroy it, or at least get it out of the doctor.
Yeah. So, it may be, who knows? Maybe it'll be like, Dragon Ball minutes where it's like, yes, it's 5 minutes before the planet explodes. That means it's going to be like 10 episodes, though, So, that might be the cliffhanger at the end of the next episode, is them just disintegrating within the Doctor. So yeah, it is interesting, though, also cloning Leela, but I guess it makes sense because that clone is going to be more expendable. You'd rather keep the original Leela here. So, and also we have K9 too, so that's kind of nice. I honestly like just immediately Leela and K9 working together. I think that's really funny, especially with him. Even though he's this highly advanced computer, he's also a dog, and that's like the perfect thing to put with a hunter. So and he at least can somewhat simplify his explanations, which is something the Doctor can't do. So
now, we had seen some episode with K9 in it before, but I didn't realize that he was going to be a highly sophisticated computer. I thought he was just going to be a dog companion that does what dog things does. But he's really kind of a Commander Data, Mr. Spock sort of thing.
Yeah, just a dog.
And they're being pulled up into a syringe we assume is filled with fluid, because you certainly don't want to inject air into somebody's veins or arteries.
Yeah.
And the couple of brief shots that we've had of the chamber where they're reduced, there seem to be some hands or something on the top of it, sculptured hands.
Well.
And of course, they're not wet at all.
Nah.
It's very interesting.
Thank you.
Hey, why are we wet?
Because we're too small to break the surface tension.
Ah, there you go.
What was that?
Just a passing thought. Electrochemical reaction in the synapses. Leg wants to move.
Yes, if we can just make some sort of barrier.
Recheck. First, we must eliminate the service shaft.
Of course, they can attack us from behind.
We haven't got much time.
Right, K9, you destroy the shaft and meet me in the corridor.
Affirmative.
Now, is there somebody inside that? That's awfully small.
I wouldn't think so.
It's all remote controlled.
I would assume it is.
Mission accomplished. Service shaft destroyed. Mistress?
Thank you, K9. Now, what we need here is some sort of barrier.
That's a very hard way to walk.
Nah.
That is the reflex link, whereby I can tune myself to the Time Lord intelligentsia. 1,000 super brains in one.
Why don't you do it now?
What? Oh, well. I lost that particular faculty when they kicked me. Oh, look. Oh, look. Connection 7.
Well, it's a good thing they're not going through his ego.
He's very brusque this particular episode.
Well,
No.
well, I mean, to him, it's a big head.
7.5 minutes.
Yeah, these are definitely Dragon Ball minutes.
Not much chance.
He didn't quite think that through.
Contact has been made.
Oh no.
5 minutes to go.
No, now it's really Dragon Ball minutes. Quit crossing his legs.
Contact has been made.
Release
He's been
him.
assimilated.
Oh no. Well, kick him. Oh, there they are.
The tear duct. The tear duct. The tear duct. The tear duct. Tear duct.
Oh, good shot.
It's a Gorn. well, that was ambiguous because it looked like he had destroyed the nucleus, but then he disappeared.
Yeah. So, and all that, and it's so strange because all that was left was Leela's knife. It looked like Leela's hair, honestly. His scarf, for some reason, and it looked like a pile of ashes from the nucleus. But
well, I'm sure they'll clear that up in the next episode. But yeah, that would have definitely. That's one of the cliffhangers where you're going, wait a minute. It looked like he destroyed the nucleus, but then the clones disappeared because their time limit was up. So why don't we find out what happened?
Yeah, because I think it is the nucleus because it at least has the claws. The only thing I could think is, what if they somehow fusion hard into one grotesque thing? So it's the nucleus and the Doctor and Leela all in one. So, but at least the Doctor himself is, getting cleared up of all the scales and the hair and stuff. So.
Although he looks good in gray hair.
Nah.
There's something to be said to gray streaks in your hair.
You still... This is like a new thing. Every episode you're going to talk about how you want all your hair to just go white.
This is so weird, just having this one streak. And it's, I could comb it to the other side, but you can still see it, so it would look like I was simply trying to hide it. So
it's just, you know what? Folks watching this at home, which is everyone, unless you're watching this in a Starbucks or something, let us know. Do you think Dad would look better if his hair was completely white? Or does he look better and not that he's actually 70 years old because he still has some color in his hair? Let us know in the comments down below. Anywho.
Help me out. Professor Marius. Oh no, not you too.
Yes, Doctor. Contact has been made. Now I serve the purpose.
What? That pathetic crustacean?
No.
Leader?
You are speaking of the nucleus of the swarm.
Take me to him.
Help the actor along.
The age of war is over, Doctor. The age of
get some cocktail sauce and dispose of him.
You megalomaniacs are all the same. Knock him out.
Affirmative. My photon beam weaponry has 4 levels of intensity, Doctor. Kill.
No, not kill. Not kill. Just knock out, eh?
Affirmative.
Good job.
I wonder if they were thinking, oh man, we have to act off of this thing now. And then they saw the nucleus and were like, you know what, K9's a whole lot better.
It's working.
Oh, good.
Sometimes my brilliance astonishes even me. Come on, Arius, wake up, wake up. The virus has a perfect right to exist as a virus, not as a giant storm threatening the entire solar system. Everything has its place. Otherwise, the delicate balance of the whole cosmos is destroyed.
I still say we should blow it up.
Doctor. K9, obey the Doctor.
Affirmative.
Get up over there. He couldn't have got it in that time.
Yeah.
Their internal cell structure.
I have a problem. Offensive capability seriously diminished. Reserves very low.
K9's breaking up. My blaster's finished. What are we going to do?
Should we try using our intelligence?
Well, if you think that's a good idea.
I mean, do they have a resistance to sharp knife being jammed in brain? Oh. Good job.
That was Janus Thorn or what?
I think that was just her knife. Oh, maybe you can blow them up.
Do you think a metal barrier can contain the swarm?
It's going to ignite the oxygen and blow them up.
Yep. It told you to get in the TARDIS. Oh, there it goes.
Methane atmosphere mixed well with oxygen and run. That was a good idea of mine, K9, to blow it up.
What do you mean it was a good idea of yours? It was my idea.
What was?
To blow it up.
Well, then you should be feeling very happy.
Yes. Oh, please, Doctor, please, let's take him.
K9 seems to have made up his own mind. I only hope he's TARDIS trained.
Alrighty. The invisible enemy. You know how I said, oh, well, there will be an enemy who is invisible? I mean, yes, but it's not what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Thought it was going to be an invisible creature, but it's microscopic. It works out. It's a virus.
Well, I have to say, the first episode set it up really, really well, and it kind of suffered in the last 3 episodes. But I mean, it was a good story. And again, I don't know. I'm sure that K9 is a beloved part, and I'm sure it will become more integrated into the more serious plots. Right now, it seems like a comic device.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the shift in tone that we were told about. That now, like, because before it even says in the description of this season that it's like, well, this season pretty much abandons the Gothic architecture and settings and stuff, and goes for a more lighthearted, kid-oriented adventure, and that's fine. And it may also just be the twofold of Leela and K9, because if it was still Sarah Jane, or even if it was back with Joe or someone, it's like, well, you've got the Doctor, you've got your companion, then you've got your strange but fun robot dog. But the fact that it's the Doctor, a primitive hunter, and a robot dog, it's a strange team that we have now.
Now, I will say, Tom Baker seemed very rude during this, and I realize they're trying to say he's working against time and therefore doesn't have the leisure to explain everything that's going on. But he seemed very brusque and very abrupt with Leela and everybody else, and so I can see why the writer, is it writers, the two of them,
yeah.
would try to inject a little bit of humor to lighten that up a little bit. The thing is, while it was going on, I kept thinking to myself, the lines that the Doctor had, he could have done that in a way that wasn't quite so harsh. And it would seem more in character. He was almost out of character in this. But again, I don't know if they deliberately did that to set him up as a contrast to the now more burgeoning character of Leela, and now the addition of the somewhat comical K9 robot.
Well, I mean, maybe it could be, because I've noticed that a couple times in previous stories, but I wonder if now they're reworking the dynamic of the team now. So originally what they were going with was that he was going to be a much older Doctor, which is why they initially brought in Harry, because he was going to be our more typical young man, the muscle and stuff. But when they cast Tom Baker, then they were like, well, what do we need Harry for? So eventually they wrote him out. So now I'm wondering if, even though they still have Tom Baker, maybe they're going back to a bit of that, sort of older, gruffer type character, because he does have the young muscle. It's just instead of, some young man, it's Leela,
Yeah.
And then throwing in with K9 too might just be kind of where they're going. I don't know. I find it interesting because of how much the Doctor talks about not liking most computers, that he would be okay with K9, It actually reminds me, because we actually mentioned the Waters of Mars earlier, that I remember in that episode there was the weird robot that they had on the station, and the doctor was like, well, did you have to make it all, silly and stuff? And when the guy that made it was like, well, I had a friend who turned their robot into a dog, and the doctor was like, well, a dog, that's a different story entirely. And it's like, is it, or is it just because you've had K9 in the past, So it's some sort of like weird double standard he holds for K9. So, but I like the dynamic. It's a weird dynamic between the three of them now.
We'll have to see how that plays out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only part of the story that just struck me as out of character, is that the doctor was very, very gruff.
Yeah.
And not lovable gruff like Hartnell was, although sometimes he could be rude too.
Yeah.
But again, he's been so affable and so charming up until now, and that was just kind of a shock.
Yeah. And now, though, I think part of that was when the clone doctor was in his brain, so I can only assume that's just the doctor at the height of his ego going through his own brain, being like most of the time, especially with pretty much anyone, especially back in the unit days when you would have Benton and the Brigadier and stuff, he would always sort of show off a bit of superiority, but sort of keep it in, it's like a very subtle, like, oh yes, well, I am better than all of you. But then adding on top of it Leela, who is more, although I say it's like, oh, she's not of the higher intelligence. We also had a bunch of seasons with Joe, so I don't know if you want to compare intelligence between Leela and Joe, but at the height of all of that is in his brain. So it's just like, well, I'm normally subtle about this, but this time I just can't be that subtle, and maybe it comes off a bit like that, but I don't know. We'll just have to see if that sort of continues into the next episodes.
And if somebody out there in the comments would let me know, we asked this before, was there actually somebody in K9, or was it just remote controlled?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that in the credits they probably have the voice of K9.
Yeah. They'll probably be third up. Oh no. All right.
Frederick Yeager looked very familiar too. Nucleus and K9 was John Leeson.
Oh yeah, interesting. So yeah, it's definitely I wasn't expecting K9, honestly. Like, it just showed up, like, oh, there's K9, and it was like, well, K9 has to be a part of the show, which is interesting because I remember that I don't know when K9 will eventually leave the show, but at some point he does, which is when they try to do the spin-off K9 and Company, which is weird that it's titled after K9 because it's a show about Sarah Jane, and it's Sarah Jane meeting K9 for some reason in a spin-off, and it really like makes you stop and think, because now I understand they never met. She's already long gone, and even in the Sarah Jane adventures later on in modern Doctor Who, they would still have K9 with Sarah Jane. So, and I know there's also an Australian spin-off with K9. I think it's just called K9, and it's not canon. It has nothing to do with Doctor Who at all. It's just a brand new story with a new model of K9, and from what I hear, it is awful. So awful. So, because I actually reacted to the K9 the one episode they made of K9 and Company, and honestly, I thought it was okay. It was just sort of it was like this. It was like an episode of classic Doctor Who, except it was just Sarah Jane and K9, and she was like going after a cult. Basically, she was like investigating a cult. It was actually a really interesting episode, but yeah, I hear that the Australian K9 show was terrible. So I don't know how that came about, but anyway.
One of those fan fiction things, I guess.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. But yeah, an interesting. I will say, because I don't want to dog on the costume for the Nucleus too hard. Even though, yes, it was awful, but it was in the last episode. it was all right, and
And if Tom Baker, literally seeing it for the first time, had made that joke about the crustacean, that would have kind of ameliorated the entire thing by saying you're a shrimp.
Yeah.
In the human world on the planet Earth, your size would be the size of a small candy bar, and we would eat you with cocktail sauce. Just right at the very beginning, so that even the audience would go, "Oh yeah, it kind of does look like a shrimp," and then they just forget about it.
Well, I think he said something to Marius about it, didn't he? Like, oh yes, I've joined the nucleus. And like, what, that crustacean? So there was a bit about that, but yeah, it was ridiculous. I love that they had to keep helping him along. I feel like that wasn't in the script. That is like, this costume is so weird and unruly that they have to help whatever actor is in there along.
And probably had to rewrite the script a little bit so that he would have to say, help me, you've got to go faster, I'm deteriorating, I'm about to become somebody's appetizer.
Yeah. So I don't want to dog on it too much, but it wasn't amazing. But the rest of the story around it still works. And that is one thing, and we've certainly talked about this recently, where even if, yes, a certain, choice made perhaps isn't the best, but the story around it was still good. So we can move on.
And again, I've part of my reason for watching Doctor Who is watching it and saying, even on some of the best scripts, how I would have done it differently as a director. Because, seriously, every play I watch, sometimes I watch TV and movies, and I look at certain things and go, oh, from my point of view, I think I could have made that more effective or something. And that same thing applied here. The fact that he had all those little kind of whiskery things, instead of showing us the full shrimp, just show like a shot from over its shoulder that shows all that. It's kind of like Davy Jones, where if they had not shown his complete face, although the CGI, of course, is much better nowadays, or it was 15, 20 years ago, whenever that came out, but to just show that Hitchcockian view where you only see the claw occasionally and all the little wavy things, that could have been, and again, maybe they weren't trying to make it scarier, but that would have been, in my opinion, more effective visually than seeing the giant shrimp.
Or even, because he doesn't look like that when he's in the Doctor's brain.
No.
So, I guess, they ditch whatever cloak or whatever he's wearing. If you had even just sort of this, but you have sort of this cloak over it, you got some weird, Palpatine thing going on, that could have worked a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the whole when you see the whole thing and the 10 million really long whiskers and the arms moving up and down that are clearly dragging the other arms up and down, and it's like, okay, you put something into this. I'm not sure what, but it works out.
Yeah. In the fact that they could create K9, probably again remote controlled, not knowing for sure, but he could, whoever the actor was, could have controlled the two upper arms, and they could have remote controlled the other two arms separately, so that it really would have looked a little spookier not to have them all moving in conjunction at the same time.
Yeah. So honestly, that just sort of reminds me of Alpha Centauri, because she also had the whole multiple arms that were clearly all tied together. So yeah. But other than that, it is a good, interesting story with this this infection, and I like too, because what would normally happen at the beginning is you get introduced to this crew, they have some problems. This guy doesn't have much excitement, I guess, or whatever. They land, something starts to happen. Maybe one of them gets hit with the infection. The Doctor and Leela land. Fingers get pointed at them, because they always get pointed at the two of them because they're strangers and stuff. And then you slowly build up to that. I like that immediately it's like, well, here's what these characters are. Now forget all of that. They've all been infected. They're all going to die at some point. Yeah. And then you move on from there. So
I really did enjoy the discussion about the way of the Predator. I mean, that's straight out of Charles Darwin. We are... I know this sounds weird because of our incredibly tiny size, but let's face it, we are the apex predator now. Humans, our species, controls the world.
Yeah.
But 65 million years ago, when humans like us did not exist, The dinosaurs were the apex predators. And yet, when they died out, it was the mammals that survived, and the reptiles and the amphibians. So, it was just, that's a fascinating way to introduce that whole thing, and to say, we tend to forget that amongst the larger mammals and the reptiles and the amphibians and the birds and the fish, there are also bacteria and viruses and funguses. So I thought they did that well. I would have liked to have seen just a little bit more of that.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting to think about because, he goes on this whole thing of predators and it's like, oh, so I have every right to, take out the humans, who are themselves predators and I am their predators and everything. But it's interesting the way they sort of frame it is that, somehow the Doctor, can overcome this predator and beat it and everything. But when you honestly think about it, where there are those predators that are attacking, you could say maybe lesser life forms like humans, the Doctor, because he's not a human, he's a Time Lord, he's the predator to them. It's just that he's a lone predator, where everyone else is a sort of species, them, the Rutons, the Sontarans, the Daleks, the Cybermen, all of them, whereas he is a lone predator, but that's still, in that sort of predator hierarchy, he is at the top, specifically, and only certain, species or individuals can give him any sort of a challenge as the apex. Mainly, like, the Master and the Daleks sort of challenge him. But even still, he beats them.
I like the fact that there was a reference to the Plague of Locusts, and also I thought there was a reference to the Black Death, the Great Plague of the mid-1300s.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what this cosmic shrimp was. He was the beginning, whether it's the first rat that infects the first flea that infects the first human, wipes out 25 million people, a third of the population or more of Europe, and ultimately ends up dying out because it killed off so many of the people that it would naturally infect, that it literally died out because there was no way that it could infect more people. That's one of the problems with viruses. You kill off all the hosts, and ultimately your virus is going to die because it's killed off its food supply.
Yeah, so... and of course, the ironic thing of all of this is we're living through that again, pretty much.
Yeah.
Over the past 2 years, we're much better about, about dealing with that now. It's not, at least I think it's not quite on the level of something like the Black Death.
I think the most recent figures that I saw said that globally, in the past 2.5 years, we've lost somewhere between 5 and 6 million people. Now, out of 7 point some odd billion, that seems to be a very, very small amount. Unless, of course, you're one of those families who's lost someone to it, like we did. So
it's just sort of interesting. And of course, the main difference with this virus is it talks.
Yes.
So
it's intelligent. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all still very interesting stuff. But yeah, and then we had everything with cloning the Doctor and Leela, which they make a point that, you had to clone Leela and put her in there as well because, with her tracking expertise, she can find the thing. I feel like they didn't focus enough on that. Like, they just sort of still stumbled in and found him, but that's just a sort of minor point. And then again, I love the interaction between Leela and K9, actually. Like, that was really interesting that immediately it's like, well, yes, he's still, even though he's a robot, he is supposed to be a dog, and he does have, decent combat capabilities, and immediately that pairs with her as a hunter. You give her any weapon, she can figure out how to use it. So putting the two of them together, and, like the virus, he can talk, so I like that he can explain, he can answer questions, and he can even simplify those answers so that she does understand, which is something that she has been lacking from the Doctor ever since she joined, basically. So yeah, I like that sort of interaction between, this sort of primitive, as they've been saying, savage girl, and this really futuristic dog, but they still pair together perfectly. So, it's still a weird choice. I don't know if I would have gone, I don't know who came up with either of these characters or the decision to put them together, but it works out.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely a change from Random Girl from London, which we've had multiple times. So, not that any of them were bad. They were all good characters, but we did also have a little bit of the talk where Leela questioned where the Doctor was like, well, yes, I don't like to kill, but if I don't do this, they're going to, pretty much wipe out the human race or take them over and everything.
Yeah.
And it is interesting because you do sort of get that, I don't know, I feel like, it's the thing we always bring up of Batman Begins of, I don't have to save you, basically. But there is something where it's like, when you hear about characters like Batman, maybe Superman, or there's later episodes with the Doctor where it seems like, oh, they will never kill. And it's like, well, I mean, it shouldn't be option number one. It's always Leela's option number one. She was so excited that her knife was able to kill multiple people this episode. But for the Doctor and for other characters like that, it really should be, it's like, well, at some point, it may come to that option. And if it does, then you may need to take it. But it shouldn't be ruled out entirely. It's the whole thing of, if Batman killed the Joker, how many people would he be able to save? And they kind of play with that in some Batman stories where it's like, oh well, if he kills, he's just as bad as the criminals and stuff. And it's like, well, you'd be better than them because you're alive and you're not them. So I don't know. So I like that they play with that a little bit with the Doctor. So, and then I like that the solution was Leela's violent solution of just blow up the base. Yeah. And that worked. So, and then obviously it was funny that the Doctor was trying to take credit for it. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all I got. You got anything else?
Well, I was just going to say, because of all the references to Titan, the moon of Saturn, and I may have said this before, for those of you who are science fiction fans, there's a great novel called The Sirens of Titan by Kurt Vonnegut Jr., which does involve a means of time travel called the chronosynclastic infundibulum. It's where a guy phases in and out of various time periods. If you've never read it, highly recommend it. In my opinion, it's better than what is considered to be his best novel, Slaughterhouse-Five. So, if you get a chance to read Sirens of Titan, highly recommend it.
All right. Good. Then yeah, that's pretty much it. So,
with all that,
next time we've got Image of the Fendal, I think.
Yeah, I can't hardly see it either.
Yeah. I think it's Image of the Fendal.
Okay. No idea.
Good for them. We'll find out next time.
Fendal sounds like a medieval name.
Yeah, or a cleaning product.
And with, new improved Fendal.
Yeah. And with all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Good, strong outro. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist for all of our classic Doctor Who reactions, as well as another playlist for all of my modern Doctor Who reactions, if you want to go check those out. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.